Well, a very, very good afternoon to you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rosa Wilkinson, and I'm the Policy Director at the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, an organisation which, when I'm giving speeches or participating in events like this, I regularly wish had a rather shorter title. It's great to see so many of you have chosen to join this workshop this afternoon. Great, but I have to say not entirely surprising, because I don't think that there is any longer any question that we need to act now to limit the more damaging impacts of climate change. It's incumbent on every single one of us to take steps to really drive down greenhouse gas emissions and, simply put, to protect the planet. We've heard from many of our speakers this morning that manufacturing has a part to play, a vital part to play in that endeavour. And every business that's here in this room today recognises the importance of addressing their own impacts on the environment. It's just no longer a question. And that's not just for the health of our planet, but frankly for the health of their business and the bottom line. I think every business here recognises that if they don't get on board, there could be very, very damaging consequences for them in the longer term. And they recognise that if they don't get on board, they could miss some of the important opportunities that could emerge from the challenge that we currently face. Because ultimately, and I think we've heard that this morning, it's our manufacturers that give the rest of us the tools that we really need to lead a genuinely low-carbon life. Low-carbon living with better insulated homes and heating systems, low-carbon energy supplies, whether it's through nuclear or renewables, low-carbon transport with lighter weight, electric vehicles and alternative fuels, low-carbon goods on our supermarket shelves so that we know that as we hurl them into our supermarket trolleys, we're not damaging the planet. To me, it's abundantly clear that we can't reach our climate change objectives without every single one of you. And the good news is that the manufacturers that I talk to, day in, day out, are all incredibly keen to get started on their journey to net zero. Every single one of them is eager to drive down their own emissions. Every single one of them is thirsting to seize the customer opportunities that will spin out from the race to low carbon. And all of them are concerned not to lose customers or investors because they haven't made the change. But is there a golden pathway to net zero? What helps out there and what more's needed? Is government doing all it needs to do to support the transition, or are some of its actions getting in the way? Well, I'm delighted to tell you that in our session this afternoon, we will hear from 4 fabulous folk who can, I hope, shed a little light on the difficult questions that we all face. Make UK's Senior Climate Change and Energy Specialist, Brigitte Amoruso. Hi, Brigitte. Ava Jones from AS Seal, a company that's really driving ahead with its net zero plans. Howard Pickard from BBC Group, and the fantastic Dimitrios Spiliopoulos from AWS Amazon Web Services, who I think has broken his paternity leave to be with us today. So, Dimitri, thank you very, very much indeed for doing that. Those of you who know me will know that I won't be able to resist interjecting occasionally. If you listen to what our speakers have to say, you may well have some questions yourself. If you do, we're using the Slido app to help get us through as many as we can in the short time that we have for Q&A. All you need to do is to go to Slido, so sli.do, enter the event code for today's event, which is Make UK 2022, and then select the plenary and net zero Fleming room, okay? And you've got all of the details up there on the screen. Before you type in your question, though, be aware, especially for those of you with fat fingers and bad typing, that somebody else may have saved you the trouble and may already have asked the question that you want to ask. If they have, you can just give it a thumbs up, and that will push it up the question pecking order. So that will allow us to see that question very clearly. But for now, let's get cracking. I'm going to ask each of our speakers to keep their comments brief, please, so that we've got more time to get into the questions that you might ask. And Brigitte, let's start with you, if we may. I know that Make UK has done some fabulous research, which it'd be good to hear about.
Thank you, Rosa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to present today as the Senior Energy and Climate Change Specialist for Make UK. The results of our recent survey on COP26, 6 months on. And the report is being released today, so I recommend you, after the session, to read that report. It will be quite complete. So, does anyone remember COP26? Some events have happened in the meantime, I think, which may have led you to think that nothing much has happened, but you may be forgiven for that, of course. Because so we've worked with Amazon, and this survey is really representative of our membership. And here you are. So we've asked you what your progress has been in the run-up to COP and since COP. So you're representing all the manufacturers here in all shapes and form, large companies, smaller ones, energy intensives or not. So what are the results? Well, while enduring all these dramatic impacts of COVID, our EU exit, and now the energy crisis, well, the figures, I should press, sorry, forgot to press this side. The figures show are actually tremendous. So despite the challenges, there's been a massive shift in mindset, in mindset and in action. And as you can see here, so even in the face of spiraling business costs, over a third of manufacturers said that achieving net zero is now a high priority right now. And 9 in 10 manufacturers are already planning further action on net zero in the next 12 months. But what is remarkable is that manufacturers now have a dedicated net zero strategy. 50% of you have, and 35% have already implemented that strategy. 14% have the strategy, haven't just yet implemented it. And then the rest, 40%, don't have a strategy, but they plan to implement one in the next, or to have one in the next 12 months. And only 1 in 10 have no plans to implement one. And that is a massive shift since in the last year, even, 18 months, where actually hardly anyone, we could count them on one hand, had a strategy specific to net zero at all. So amazing, you still haven't forgotten, and you've taken action. So what are the strategies that you have used? Well, not surprisingly, they focus on energy efficiency. But we can separate already the strategies that have been taken inside the factory, so to tackle with the scope 1 and 2, so the direct and indirect emissions, and the ones that are outside the factory, so to tackle the value chain emissions, much more complicated. So it's quite logical that you've all, or the majority, have dealt with the scope 1 and 2 emissions. And most of you have focused on optimizing energy efficiency, nearly 80%. Another nearly half have been optimizing their operations and process efficiency. And another third considering or have done on-site renewable energy generation. And then there's another third who are optimizing resource efficiency, all those materials that are becoming critical and difficult to source, and or another third to improve buildings for space heating. So that is a lot. And then the 24% that you see are those who are actually training staff. So again, here we see how important training and skills are. But there are, So outside the factory, it's actually communications. It's about communicating the ambition of your net zero requirement or your net zero requirements to your suppliers and your customers. It's also about reducing transport emissions, either from your own, from your commuting vehicles or your logistics. And interestingly as well, it's about helping, many of you are helping suppliers and customers to reduce their own emissions. So realizing that this is a difficult task to do and that help can, help accelerate this. And only a much smaller percentage are actually offsetting carbon emissions through external projects, which is a good sign because actually the net zero principle is first that you have to eliminate and reduce your emissions as much as possible, and then you can offset them against those that you cannot eliminate easily. So are there any opportunities? Well, yes, and 40% of you actually have seen opportunities, and they're already taking advantage of them and even adapting the R&D strategies. So the number one is actually saving money, which is a good thing, by increasing process efficiency and productivity. That's really the main point. The second one is having competitive advantage through innovative products and services, and finally attracting new talent to businesses again. So as you can see, important skills. But there are still barriers. For 44% of you do see barriers, so that's still too much. 1 in 10 see no opportunity at all, and a third say net zero will be detrimental. So that is still far, far too much. Top of the list is the lack of skills to implement the changes that may be inverted now, but with energy, the prices and insufficient or too long payback periods, although with the energy prices now the payback periods will be much shorter if you're investing. Negative impact on cash flow, profit and operational challenges of decarbonization technologies. So very interestingly as well, when we interrogated our members about digital technologies, well, 33% said that actually a lack of digital skills and an inability to measure carbon footprint is holding them back. And also, moreover, the potential role of digital technologies is still unclear for manufacturers. So just to finish here, and Dimitrios will be able to say a lot more on digital technologies, helping with all these difficulties. So we see opportunities, but there are too many barriers. And so we have to continue helping manufacturers realize the opportunities of net zero, just as importantly as we have to help them achieve it. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to turn to Dimitri from Amazon Web Services. Not quite the same thing as Amazon, Dimitri, so do help us to understand the relationship a bit, if you would. I know you've been looking very hard at how digitalization, and in particular the Internet of Things, can help companies start and accelerate their path to net zero. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to be with all of you here today. And as you said, I have a break from my paternity break by being here. So thanks for the invitation. So I'm the industrial IoT lead for manufacturing for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I'm working for Amazon Web Services, which is part of Amazon Group, but you can consider it as a cloud and technology provider that enables manufacturers and other industries for their digital transformation. And I would like to, next slide please, I would like to talk today about how you can use a data-driven approach for the industrial decarbonization. Oh, sorry. I thought someone else.
Amazon is a different world, folks.
Or just touch. Hey, Alexa, change the slide. So yeah, I would like to show you, first of all, what AWS is doing in manufacturing, because maybe some of you know just Amazon.com and not what AWS is doing for the sector, and also how we can help manufacturers with their digital and green transition. And also, I would like to thank Make UK for giving me early access to the results of the report. And before I start, I would like just to put some context on the digital relationship with sustainability and say that based on an Accenture study from last year, that the intersection of digital technologies and sustainability really drives business growth. And they found from their analysis that the twin transformers, which means companies that are investing and taking care of both digital transformation and sustainability, they are expected to that they will have 2.5 times more, they have 2.5 times more chances to outperform their peers by combining both digital and green transformation. So keep this in mind for the next slides. So what Amazon Web Services is doing in the sector and why we are here today. So first of all, you may know that Amazon for years is operating in factory operations from fulfillment center, supply chain, and also manufacturing devices. So we're using the Amazon's years in this sector to produce services and also to serve our customers using mechanism of Amazon. Also, we're serving manufacturers for many years, so we have collected lots of experience with leaders in the industrial and manufacturing sector that we can bring also to other manufacturers in the UK. The other interesting thing is that we don't have only the classic IT and cloud services, but we have also launched purpose-built services for industrial workloads, which can really optimize operations at the industrial sites. And we have services related to digital twins, to collecting data from SCADA system, OPC UA protocols, edge computing, and all of these are designed for industrial use cases. And third, and very important, is that we're also enabling partners that are focusing on industrial and manufacturing sector, and we're enabling to build specific solutions that can help manufacturers with their sustainability problems and also efficiency and all of these classic industrial use cases. And don't worry, I will not explain all this, but just to show you that, that there is end-to-end capability for industrial use cases, starting from in the factory with the machines, collecting data from the machines, from the factory, like at the edge, doing edge computing, and then bringing data to the cloud, using industrial IoT, and then analyzing the data, creating data lakes, and adding more intelligence on the top, like machine learning, AI, and trying to create some nice and easy-to-use visualization so you can have alerts, and all the concepts. And so there is much more. We can have 20 sessions about this. But I would like now to focus how AWS is helping customers to achieve their goals. And there are multiple pathways that you can take. First one is which we call build, which if manufacturers, for manufacturers that they have internally digital skills, like big digital teams, they can really use our AWS services to build their use cases and solutions that they need. But we know that these are very few, right? The minority of manufacturers have strong digital skills, and we found also at the Make UK report that this is one of the blockers. So we're focusing more, and I would like to focus more today on the engage and deploy. So the other path is to work with our partners who are experts in industrial and manufacturing, but also on cloud services, Internet of Things, machine learning, and they can help you, even if you don't have the skills or if you don't have the time they can help you build the solutions for you and do the customization that you need. So you can really reach out to us to take access to our partner ecosystem and guide you which is the right partner for your goals. And the third one is, if you don't have the skills internally and you don't want much customization, you can just buy partner solutions and deploy them quickly. So there are different paths to follow. And also keep in mind that AWS has manufacturing teams and also sustainability teams that can really take care of your, discuss with you the problems, understand how you can start, what is the best way to start, and get their advice about starting or progressing your journey. And based also on the report of Make UK and also from our experience in the industry, we see 4 categories of, I would say, use cases that are helping with transition to net zero for manufacturers, and all of them are data-driven, and the focus is to optimize what you're doing. And the first one, which we saw also at the Make UK report, is the energy optimization, which almost 80% of the manufacturers said that this is the top strategy to come closer to your net zero goals. So we can help you with energy optimization, either with our professional services or with our partners who are experts at this use case, or with other resource optimization. This could be water, chemicals, metals, or whatever is in your production, by using Internet of Things, data, and machine learning. The second category is about production and process optimization, that we can help you by using edge computing, IoT, and cloud to monitor the production, understand in real time what is happening, and then trying to find efficiencies so you can optimize and again reduce waste, increase the productivity, but also to reduce costs and also come closer to net zero. The third use case, which I think is more recent and not many companies are looking at it, but I know that we see many customers are looking at it, is how you can measure the carbon footprint of your products. This could be like how much is 1 kilo for 1 kilo of steel, or for a car, or even for a door. And we have either our professional services or our partners that can help you end-to-end measure, report the carbon footprint, and also later to help you reduce it based on the data that you can collect. And the fourth one is about smart products, which is not straightforward how it is related, but really as a manufacturer you can take ownership of your products that you are selling by trying to extend the life cycle of the products, repurpose the products, and recycle them at the end. And this is very relevant to circular economy. I don't have more time, right? Come to our stand for more questions. It's straightforward. And also our partner, Green Custard, is straight there. You can come and ask about fixed price, fixed scope offerings we have that you can start with 5K for these use cases and deliver in just a few weeks for a POC. Thank you, and looking forward to questions.
Very much indeed, and sorry for cutting you off at the knees there. Seriously, go and have a chat with them on the stand. There are good people there. I'm get a real sense from that of the importance of data, but how does it really feel once you get inside a company? Well, I'm delighted to welcome Ava Jones from AES Engineering, AES Seal, to tell us a bit more about how it feels for a company that's actually quite a long way along its journey. Ava, over to you.
Thank you, and also thank you to Make UK for inviting me along today. I know it's been a wonderful event so far, so I'm really excited to see how the rest of this afternoon goes. So, as Rosa mentioned, I'm wanting to share a bit about the AES engineering journey, where we are on our net zero roadmap and what we've done. But to start off with, I'd just like to show a short clip which will hopefully set the scene a little bit in regards to AES CO. Sorry.
If you look at the 1950s and 60s, businesses were all about naked capitalism and making profit. In the 21st century, we learned to embrace all stakeholders, that is employees, customers, suppliers and communities. Our 29 by 29 investment makes the statement that our most important stakeholder is the planet. To find out more, please visit betterworld.solutions.
So I think you can obviously tell from that video that AES is very committed in regards to the planet. We see it as one of our stakeholders within the organisation. But I think the question is, why? And I know obviously a lot's been mentioned in regards to why this is important for business, but I just want to give it from a perspective of a manufacturer who's been through this journey. So government and business, we are very reliant in regards to new technologies. We're all waiting for new technologies to come out for us to invest in. But the thing is, we're not going to get anywhere if we don't start investing now. So the IPCC believes that reaching net zero is now no longer enough. We're going to have to remove 5 to 10 gigatons of CO2 from our atmosphere annually, and this is by the second half of this century. So this needs to be done now. It's not about looking at it in 10, 15 years' time. We need to take action. So in regards to the AES journey, we initially outlined our roadmap to achieve net zero by 1st of April 2029. As an organisation, we've monitored Scope 1 and 2 emissions for a number of years, where we're essentially looking at our direct emissions and indirect emissions. We've also looked at Scope 3 emissions, which is a lot more difficult, but I'll explain that a little bit more. For the reporting period of October 2020 to September 2021, we've done calculations for our global organisation, so looking at over 43 sites. That's including manufacturing, it's including repair centres, so we also repair products, and it's also including sales offices. Our Scope 1 emissions were just over 2,600 tonnes. That's globally, so that's not just based on the UK, and we've been able to reduce that for a number of different reasons, for loads of different projects that we've done globally and in the UK as well. And then as for our Scope 2, it's just over 2,000 tonnes. So our Scope 1 and 2 are far less, as you can see, in comparison to our Scope 3. Now, I'm sure some of you are aware that Scope 3 is essentially looking at your supply chain, your value chain. It's looking at things such as purchased goods and services, employee commuting, business travel. There's all sorts that falls into Scope 3. So as an organisation, we've used the Greenhouse Gas Protocol framework to identify what our Scope 3 emissions are as an organisation. We did identify that categories 1 to 12 fitted the AES business, 13 to 15 weren't applicable. And we've done this data for a couple of years as well, but this is the first year that we have had it independently verified to ISO 14064. The independent verification was undertaken by British Standards Institute. We previously had it undertaken by SGS as well. So it's, we are wanting to ensure that our methodology and our data is accurate. So in regards to how we're reducing our Scope 1 and 2 emissions, obviously I'm telling you numbers, but what we've been able to do is implement a number of projects as a result of our investment policy to prevent global warming. And as a result of this, we've invested in things such as LED lighting, solar panels, not just across the UK, but looking at China, US, India. We've got orders for other sites as well. We've also got battery storage systems. So I've noticed PowerStar are here today, so we work particularly closely with PowerStar on these systems as well as the solar. We purchase green energy where possible. So in the UK, we've got 100% green energy. The US, we've recently just moved to 80% green energy. And as a result of this, it has enabled us to reduce our Scope 2 emissions. As well as this, we are also looking at electrification of our fleet. And there's a load of different projects that's going off within our organisation. Now, obviously, the question is, well, why have you invested so much? How have you done this? We've had sustainability champions essentially within our organisation. So we've assigned a couple of people, not just in the UK, but also our business leaders, to ensure that they're really taking sustainability to heart and that they're implementing this as part of their day-to-day operations and looking at how they can operate more sustainably. So, going back to the Scope 3 emissions, obviously I've mentioned that it is far greater than our Scope 1 and 2. So we've done all of the calculations in line with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol framework, which is freely available. And all the conversion factors have either been DEFRA conversion factors, so the ones that are published online, or wherever the relevant country is, we've used the relevant emission conversion factors for them. So as well as calculating those emissions, so what impact we're having on the environment, we've also looked at what positive impact we have. So at AES, we essentially provide a product that is helping our customers to either prevent how many emissions they are producing or eliminate their negative impact. And as a result of this, we took 208 systems, which we sold for the same reporting period that we looked at Scope 1, 2 and 3, and we've been able to calculate the emissions associated with manufacture of that product through to the emissions being actually in use through to end of life. And as a result, we are far greater in regards to our positive impact, where we have helped to prevent the emission of 464,000 tonnes of CO2e over a 10-year period. Now, obviously, I mentioned that that's far greater than Scope 3, so essentially we are having more of a positive impact on the environment than we are in regards to our operations. Now, I've been asked the question before, is that not going to be double counting when your customers start to look at these emissions within their own supply chain? At some point it will be, but for now we can continue to take the benefit as a result of this. But obviously keeping up to date with all the changes, we'll then have to see what we do as an organisation. So despite us as an organisation having such a positive impact on the environment, we still want to go a little bit further. So the back end of last year, our board committed to spend 29 million by 2029. So I mentioned that our net zero target was initially 1st of April 2029. We're kind of a little bit ahead of our roadmap, which is a really, really good thing for the business, but we also want to invest. So of that 29 million that we intend to invest, we've spent 8 million of that so far, the majority being in the UK. So again, looking at battery storage systems, we do have a 0.5 megawatt battery storage at our head office in Rotherham at the moment, but we've got a 1 megawatt on order, which should be arriving sort of the back end of this year. We've also got a 0.5 megawatt on order for the US and other operational sites as well. So the idea of the 29 million is to try and just reduce our footprint where possible. So for our Scope 1 and 2, we have had to use offsetting credits for that particular reporting period. All of these have been gold standard schemes, so we make sure we undertake a lot of due diligence before we actually purchase any offsetting, and we obviously identify that we want to be as close to zero before we do go down the offsetting option, because offsetting isn't the answer for everybody. So as I mentioned, 8 million has been spent so far. The remainder of the 29 million will be spent on our global businesses. So it's not just about leading the way in the UK. It is about making sure that everybody at the AES organisation is doing the right thing. And I think one thing to mention is that we are starting to see the benefits of this. We're starting to see that our customers really appreciate the work we're doing. We're getting our supply chain reaching out to us in regards to how can we help our suppliers. But we're also starting to see a cultural change at AES as well in the way that our employees are thinking and what actions they're taking both inside and outside of the organisation as well. So I think to sort of conclude this, I think one thing I want everybody to think about is why not try and help save the world by also having a return on investment. I think together we can all make a huge difference, but AES is absolutely tiny. Obviously the work we're doing is great, but I think everybody needs to come together and sort of join along in the journey. Thank you.
You say that AES is tiny, but I know that it's got big ambitions. Are you going up there now? So now I'm delighted to welcome a company that's a little bit earlier in its journey, Howard Pickard from LBBC Group, a company with real heritage here in the UK. I think you're approaching 150 years old, not you personally, Howard, but the company. tell us a bit about how you're beginning to get into your journey.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you again for Make UK for inviting me to share our experience so far, and hopefully somebody will take something away to inspire them to also join the journey. So, as Rosa says, we were established in 1876 as a business, and I and my brother are the fifth generation of the family to own and operate the business. We do about 10 million a year, employing 80 employees. We have structured in 4 divisions in various sizes. So we do from basic engineering subcontract services, fabrication, machining, and things of that kind, through to the technology side in LBPC Technologies, to develop equipment for the end users. And that means that we have quite a diverse employee base, skill base, and also customer base. Because you'll see a recent division that we created is a Resumation, and that's using the established generic technology of pressure control and that machine equipment, but for a very different application of basically it's a new form of cremation, a more sustainable form of cremation that we're introducing throughout the world, obviously including the UK. And you can imagine dealing with that sector is very different than established market of ours of the aerospace industry, quite diverse, but the technology we have is common throughout. So, like many of us, we're all hearing about net zero. We're all aware of COP26. We're all aware of our individual responsibilities, but it's how we apply that to our businesses, whether we're employee or whether we're own and determine the future of that business. And we felt as a family that we are fairly established, been around many years. We have every intention of it continuing as a family business. And therefore, one of the objectives we have is to be sustainable, both as a viability, but also as a contributor to the planet and the health of the environment. So that was do the right thing. You know, it's we all do it domestically, I'm sure, by recycling or going vegan, as my daughters have done, and things all of that nature. But that doesn't run the business, so to speak. So customers, we have, as I said a moment ago, quite a diverse range of customers, and from the OEMs of Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, GE, big guys like that. We manufacture submarine hatches within what we do, and so BAE Systems included in that. And we can see that we're getting asked early questions, but we can see it on the horizon that this is going to become more and more of a requirement to do business with these types of people. We don't do a lot of public sector business, but I know that's the case there. So as being part of that supply chain, it's very much something that we are seeing happening. The products that we make, and they're all industrial products. There's the Resumation side, which wouldn't describe as industrial, but it's still a piece of equipment. It still has an impact on the environment, and the way that we manufacture those products has an impact on the environment. So we felt the need to understand the whole project and strategy around it. And then, as I've talked about with Resumation, it's all about sustainability and environmental impact. And if we are trying to suggest that crematoria or the industry take on this new sustainable form and product that we offer, and then are not doing it ourselves in any way as a business, then that doesn't wash. Now, the last one is interesting in that we have been doing a lot of work. We do quite often, we're on our third knowledge transfer partnership with the University of Leeds, and we took this on a couple of years ago about the connectivity of our equipment. It goes all over the world, so the obvious benefit would be in terms of support, product support, but we have developed that further so that we're getting data, and interestingly we use AWS for our cloud data, and that's leading us to do the predictive maintenance and predictive performance and with algorithms and AI. And just recently, really, we're getting questions. Rolls-Royce very recently asked us that they would like to have this equipment connected so that they can be getting the Scope 1, Scope 2 and the data for their net zero strategy. So it's driven quite strongly from a number of angles, and so that's why we've done it. We are fairly early in the journey. I say that, but it's just over a year, but there's an awful lot of work initially that you've got to do to get it going. So we had a go ourselves, just looking various sources of information, but felt that actually you need somebody who can hold your hand, certainly initially. So through the connections of Make UK, we we made a commitment with Inspired, who you'll find here. So that involved putting a team together across the group, having some training so that we can all understand what it's about, what we need to do. And then the hard work began, which was gathering that data. The energy, the utilities is quite easy, but then it's Scope 3 really, and we're still going through that at the moment about how we can look and measure those impacts. So we've done a few waste reduction initiatives, zero waste to landfill now. We've put in some EV charge points, and our targets are for 1 and 2 by 2030. We're looking at solar PVs on the roofs of the factory, and that's what it's about. And we have a strategy, which is just an extract there, and it's really the challenges we've had, because it's not straightforward. It's not part of the day job, so to speak, and that's the difficulty. So we have to commit from the top. We have to get everybody involved, gathering the data, as I've said, and understanding it. It's still not 100% clear when you start looking out. There's a lot of conflicting, not necessarily guidance, but information on it. And then if you're a busy business, then who's going to do it? Who's going to spend time on this? And it's a challenge. So we're on the journey, as I say. It sounds a bit corny, but that's what it's about. And we are committed, and we will achieve net zero. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much indeed. In a moment, we'll come on to some questions, but I'm a great believer in audience participation. I'm sorry, folks, but I am. So what I'd like to do is a moment of live lab, if we may. Could you stand up, please, if your company already has or is thinking about putting in place a net zero plan? Now, we should see about 77% of you, which is good validation of the work that Brigitte has been leading. That's brilliant. Now, those of you who are still at the planning phase and haven't yet got going, please sit down. Okay, so quite a few of you did sit down there, but it shows us that actually some of the issues that we're dealing with on the net zero journey are pretty tricky for us to get going on at times, and I think that some of that may well come up in our questions. Thanks, folks. You can all be more comfortable again now, and I won't drop in on you again. Let's see what Slido has to suggest for us. have we got Oliver Bridge from Grant Thornton? Oliver, would you like your question first of all? How could the UK government structure funding to support businesses to invest in and accelerate net zero initiatives? Should this be via a tax or direct funding, was the question that you asked. I'm not entirely sure that our panel is particularly well placed for that one, but I'll come on in a moment. Brigitte, what's the Make UK view?
Well, we're working with governments on that. I don't have the answer, but I think it's probably a mixture of both. We're asking, for example, for the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund or some funding to be more accessible, at least to many more of you, and particularly the non-energy intensive companies who I think are being left out a little bit of the focus of governments on that instance. But, you know, fiscal incentives are also extremely important. So particularly to enable you to invest in solar panels, plant and machinery. And so they have done something already on, they've scrapped for, 100% of the business rates for plant and machinery for green projects. So that's good to know from this year. And they've a couple of other things as well for building insulation and so on. So it's starting. We've been pushing, and I think it's probably a mixture of the two. There's quite a lot of funding available, but the problem is that most of you or most people don't know where to get this funding, or it's very difficult to apply for it.
I think part of the challenge that I hear when I'm talking to businesses is that they want to be confident that they are spending whatever resource that they can find in the right way. So often it's about starting the journey and then thinking about what is the appropriate source of financing. In a moment, I'm going to come to both Ava and Howard to ask how you have funded your journey so far. But any reflections from AWS, Dimitri?
I would like just say that easy access, as you said, to the funding can make a difference, so everyone can take advantage. And look also that we see that some banks are also giving green funding, funding for green investments, or also tech companies are very keen to support with some funding or credits for your sustainability project. So it's not only what the government is doing, but I would say look also for other ways to source funding or discounts.
And sometimes it can be hard to find out what's out there. I know that organisations like Grant Thornton are often producing material that will help businesses to navigate what can be a very complex and confusing landscape. I was delighted to talk to Julie Kenny a little bit earlier today. She and I worked together in the past within the Small Business Service, and we did a survey at one point. There was something like 300 different government business support schemes, which is bewildering. It's not changed that much, maybe different schemes. How do you navigate it? Can be really challenging. Howard, you mentioned that you'd worked with the KTP or had a couple of knowledge transfer partnerships operating. How have you looked to start your journey and finance it?
Well, we are at an early stage of it, so we haven't had to make any significant investments yet. And so reviewing what availability there is will be part of that. So at the moment, it's principally been the work with Inspired and the time that we've spent on it to do it. So we haven't had to commit any significant investment as yet, but that's going to be part of what we do. So I'm interested as anybody.
Indeed.
But what I would say is that often we find that finance can be available for things like the KTP, as you referred to, but it shouldn't be the decision maker. The decision, you've got to make the decision to do the whole strategy and then look for the funding to support it, really, is what.
One of your slides made clear that leadership and wider engagement was hugely important. And Ava, if I can come to you, I mean, that leadership can really be important when it comes to getting ideas for investment past your FD.
Yeah.
How has that worked in AES Seal?
So in terms of the AES journey, when we initially outlined the project, we kind of applied for a budget as such. The budget was going to be something that we'd work on an annual basis. It wasn't just a one-off budget, it was something we'd have to look at each year. And to be quite honest, I think our finance director and managing director, in fact our whole board, are extremely supportive in regards to funding, how we reduce our emissions, what investments we look at. But I do think sort of going to what funding is available, AES, as far as I'm aware, we've not had any funding help. It's not something we've really looked into, and I think that's simply because it's not easy enough to find at the moment, and hopefully it will become easier over time.
So, you know, a very clear product offering there for Grant Thornton, I think. Perhaps you can help us all by bringing more forwards. Really interesting question here from Andrew Brody. And Brigitte, I'm going to start with you. We need clearer, consistent rules. How can we push with government so the public trust the data companies produce on a level field? Now, this is going to be a really interesting one because very often companies get involved in activity and then are accused of greenwashing. So what do we need to do so that the public can trust what companies are telling them? And do we need clearer rules? And Ava, I'm going to come to you afterwards because I know that you've been thinking about this within AES Engineering. So Brigitte, let's start with you.
Well, I was going to say that reporting is really important anyway to let potential investors know what you're doing, financial reporting. And now the government has introduced for large companies and LLPs, not just those listed, so mandatory climate-related reporting, but also, well, the COP now has got rules globally for carbon markets for offsetting. So that's already, you know, some improvements, I think, which will improve with time as well, increase with time. So yes, I think it's coming, but clearly there's a lot of work to do on the policy landscape. Yeah, clearly, huge work with standards of reporting. And I think if it can trickle down, you know, to more companies, maybe medium-sized eventually, but maybe with more flexibility, you know, that could also help.
I think that probably ties into another question which has been put, which is how can we make sure that the claims for carbon reduction are actually being delivered? You know, it's that reporting element. Yes. We'll come to Ava next.
Thank you. So in terms of, I think what AES have done, we've obviously gone down the ISO 14064 verification route, but at the moment there's no sort of standard you can work to. It's kind of like look at your data and hope for the best. And obviously businesses can't do that. They need some support to ensure that they're looking at the data accurately, that everybody's sort of reporting on the same thing as well. So we have been verified to ISO 14064. We will continue to try and work with BSI and push for some sort of standards to be produced in future. But I don't think it's a quick fix. I think it's going to be something that I'll develop over the next few years, and hopefully businesses can help influence that as well.
Smashing. Dimitri, you were waving at me. Off you go.
Yeah, I would like to add the technology aspect on this, and I'm coming from the IoT, Internet of Things background, which is all about data, that also the use cases that I presented are really helping manufacturers to help them with the reporting and bringing transparency to their operations, like they can know in real time for them what they are doing, but when they have achieved a good level, like yourselves, like you could even give access to the government maybe, or to your customers, access to this data to see how much how much energy you are consuming, how much efficiencies you are bringing back to your business. And now there are the digital or technology tools for manufacturers if they want to prove it and bring more transparency to their customers and to the government. So and I think for SMB manufacturers, it's even more achievable than the global ones.
Yeah, thank you. Now, we've got a really well-read one from Mr. Anonymous, or Mrs. Anonymous here. 80% of companies' emissions typically come from Scope 3C. 3C.1, purchase goods and services, so somebody who really knows their stuff. Do you think enough is being done to engage supply chains. So really interested in your reflections here. And Howard, you're just at the beginning of your journey. How are you talking to your supply chains?
We are at the beginning, so it's a matter of picking the key ones that you work with, and it's another dimension that you work with your suppliers on. And it hasn't come to yet where you're saying, well, we want your technology, but we don't like your footprint, so to speak. So it's a matter of working with them, really, in a partnership at this stage, because as has been said, the standards aren't entirely clear either at the moment. So it's a matter of philosophy a lot at the moment, and you can immediately tell. We had it with our scrap metal, our waste processors. We've used them many years, and everything was great, but they didn't get it so they weren't able to give us the data. So we looked around and found somebody who was.
Ava, you're a little bit further forward. Is that what you've been finding as well, that actually companies come at this from slightly different angles and with slightly different measures in place?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the hardest thing for us as an organisation is obviously trying to engage our suppliers. So we have actually just got a new purchasing manager who's absolutely pushing this. We're looking at our top 20 suppliers at the moment, potentially doing some sort of supplier open day where we get them all together, get them engaged, get them to understand what AES have done, but also just open that conversation up to see what they're doing differently, because our suppliers are obviously based all around the world, they're not just in the UK, so different countries at different levels, and it's understanding how we can all help each other. So it's very, very, very difficult. I think purchase goods and services was the largest category of our Scope 3 emissions for the organisation, so it's something we're going to have to focus on massively. In regards to new suppliers, we've recently just amended our supplier sort of form. When we're looking for new suppliers, we're wanting them to outline what their commitments are, what they're doing, and then obviously it's going to be very hard in regards to if they've outlined what the commitments are, how can they evidence that in what level do you take it to? It becomes a full-time job in itself, to be honest.
I can believe that. Ava, thank you. I'm having a sign waved at me that says the one word that I have to observe, which is finish. I'm sorry that we didn't manage to get to all of the questions that were put within Slido. Before this event, we did have a conversation that the panel would work together after the event to try and come up with a piece of something, whether it's a blog or an article, I'm not entirely sure, that will answer some of the questions that we haven't managed to get to. But for now, will you join me in thanking our absolutely fabulous panel, Bridget Amaru-Russo, Ava Jones, Dimitris Filiopoulos, and Howard Picard.